Hey guys, Tarke here, and these are some generic trees for chaos damage over time starters. These are ideally kind of like, you use these as a very rough base. Anyone who tells you they have the perfect starter tree is lying, because the new passive tree has completely changed everything. If someone says they've got the perfect build, they're full of shit. These are very rough bases. Please change these to suit you. Most of these are centered around Trickster, but you can very easily swap them into Occultist. And there's mostly Eldritch Battery trees. There are some CI trees as well. If you don't know what Eldritch Battery does, you either get it on the tree for 4 points or use the unique Helm Devouring Diadem. You spend Energy Shield before mana. So basically, if you did Mind Over Matter Eldritch Battery, you reserve all of your mana, use your Energy Shield instead of mana to cast your spells, and your Energy Shield works the same way that mana works for Mind Over Matter. I use Eldritch Battery Mind Over Matter in like all of these builds. Very good. Obviously, except for the CI ones. So, Trickster's good if you want to play Occultist instead of Trickster. Both are fine. Some are better for some things, some are better for other things. It doesn't matter, whichever one you prefer, both are valid options. I'm picking Trickster because I like Trickster. When it comes to the Ascendency options, all options are kind of valid. I'm taking the Escape Artist Ghost Dance stuff because it's really cool. If you haven't seen it, Ghost Dance now gives you up to 9% damage reduction per Ghost Shroud, stacking up to 3. I'm also hoping it has a really cool visual, free MTX, let's go. If it has a trash visual, respec. We don't want bad setups here. It also gives you evasion and some movement speed. Escape Artist, it has the old effects of +5 evasion rating per 1 maximum ES on helmet, and +1 ES per 6 evasion on body armor. It also gives you up to 36% attack and cast speed if you have max Ghost Shrouds, cannot be stunned while you have Ghost Shrouds, and 20% chance to dodge spell hits if you have Energy Shield. Note these aren't active on Path of Building. I probably need to press a button which says, do I have Ghost Shrouds? There's probably something somewhere that I should have worked out earlier. Oh well. But basically, these will be up most of the time. Now, with Escape Artist, you're going to be wanting to use an ES-based helmet for free evasion, and an evasion-based helmet for free Energy Shield. Chest pieces that I would highly recommend are Perfect Form. Perfect Form gives you phase acrobatics, so that means that with that plus Escape Artist, you have 50% spell dodge without having to take acro on the tree. Very nice. You could use Fox's Fortune, which gives you enemies are unlucky when damaging you while you're on full life, which you'll be on quite a lot of the time. And it also gives you some movement speed. Movement speed is very good. Perfect Form is probably what I'd pick for most people. Another option would be Hiri's Ire. Hiri's Ire gives you 10% dodge and spell dodge, and it also gives up to 262 cold damage if you do some, like, Trickster bow memes. But you're basically using it because that's 2.5k evasion, 10% dodge, 10% spell dodge, and if you're like, Tarke, all of these options seem too wacky, I'm just going to use Queen of the Forest because that's actually a good item, you noob. Then I would highly recommend Queen of the Forest, that's also a pretty good item, you noob. Now, when it comes into how you're spending the other points, Patient Reaper, I think, is too good not to use. The reason being it gives you life, ES, and mana recovery. It also gives you up to, well, no, it just gives you 7% increased recovery of life, mana, and ES if you've killed an enemy recently with dots. These are all dot builds. That's very, very powerful. So you're like, okay, so I'm probably taking these three. How am I spending my last point? All of these options are very valid. So Weave the Arcane gives you mana sustain if you're playing normal Mind Over Matter, not like EB Mind Over Matter. It also gives you free movement skills, 6% damage reduction every now and again, and 20% attack and cast speed. Swift Killer gives you +1 frenzy and power charges. Keep in mind, frenzies give you damage. This is like 16% more damage while you have max frenzies. It also gives you increased damage per frenzy and power charge. You're getting like 40% increased damage altogether. And if you channel, you got very easy frenzy and power charge sustain while channeling on bosses. Prolonged Pain gives you skill effect duration. Skill effect duration will be very, very good with Soulrend and will scale nice with Bane, which doesn't really need it, but it will make Bane even better. A reduced damage taken from damage over time effects, so nice for Ignite, Poison, random Burning Ground stuff, which can actually be pretty good for Delve. Some of the very deep delves have ridiculous Burning Grounds. I'm pretty sure I saw Uberdan like get instantly ripped to Burning Ground, so actually kind of good. And then it gives you 20% more damage over time. So yes, I would personally go Prolonged Pain and Escape Artist, but if you want to take Swift Killer instead or Weave the Arcane, all are valid. The tree is fairly generic in the fact that it will work for most things. It has 192% life. These life values, by the way, aren't really with any gear equipped, because who knows how expensive certain gear will be, who knows how good certain synthesis stuff will be. This is just like a rough base. 192% life, you'll have roughly 2k energy shield if you're using some kind of chess piece and a discipline, scaling Trickster. Now, if you keep in mind like how much mana the average mind over mana build does, they usually have like 2 to 3k-ish mana. So with just Trickster and a random unique and discipline, you'll have 2.1k energy shield without any hybrid gear or pure ES gear. That's how good EB Mom is. It saves you loads of investment, and the only real skill points you have scaling it are 2 hybrid wheels, Sanctity, and then this node. Obviously, if you do this in Occultist instead, Occultist gains a bunch of flat ES. So either option gains loads of free flat ES. Now, if you're like, but Tarke, should I be like staffs? Should I use one-handed shield? Should I dual wield? It really is going to depend on what weapons you want to use and also what setups you're going for. If you're going pure Essence Drain and you don't want to mess around with Soulrend or anything, I'd probably recommend going 2 wands, each wand with 40% projectile speed on each, because projectile speed makes Essence Drain feel a lot better. Also worth noting, these new nodes here, these miners both give damage, generic damage, 5% projectile speed, 5% area of effect. Bane is AoE, Contagion is AoE, Essence Drain has AoE now, Soulrend is the only one which doesn't have AoE, and projectile speed might be bad, might be good for Soulrend. So if you're a Soulrend build, you could maybe skip this cluster. I think you'll probably still want it, maybe skip the miners. If you're playing Bane, Essence Drain, or Contagion, you definitely want all 3 points 100%. These are also very strong. These give increased evasion. Increased evasion is good on Trickster because we're scaling loads of evasion. Flat ES, flat life, and all res. All res is very good at start of league because you probably have bad gear. So I take all of these miners here. I also take both of these 2 starting nodes. These 2 starting nodes are very nice once you're in the high 90s for Trickster, because they give generic damage and flat ES. Generic damage, flat ES? Tasty. If you're trying to save skill points from this tree, cut random floating nodes that you don't need till very high level. Okay. Soulrend also does have AoE, so it benefits, but the pro speed might make it bad. You're probably taking these nodes for everything. I take this rooting rather than that one to get a little bit more regen, save some points. This is a no-brainer. If you're going shield base, take these shield nodes. I would take the entire wheel. They're very, very good. One thing worth noting, personally, I'd probably lean more towards one hand and shield than dual wield wands. The reason being is when you have, with this active, 54% spell dodge, and if you look at the shield tree, 50%-ish block and 10% spell block, that's like a lot of defense. You know, because you're going to have like 64-ish spell block with 50% block, with like good life, good ES recovery. That's very tanky. If you're going for the shield setup, there are a few different shields you can use. If you want like a cheapo unique, Crest of Perendus has 31% block and 80 life and res. Pick up for like an Alk day 1, very solid. Lionized Remorse, again, very high block with 30%, has a bunch of life at 180. It does have reduced maximum movement speed, which kind of sucks. I would also recommend Wrathpith Globe. Has plus 15% spell block if you're trying to go like full ignore all the spell memes. Up to 6% increased spell damage, 10% maximum life. Also has a bunch of energy shield and a bit of lightning res. You're probably just going to be going for either a synthesized or an elder or a shaper shield. An example of that would look something kind of like this, something kind of like this. This all like tier 2 rolls, up to 70% increased spell dodge, 90 life, recover life when you block. You also recover ES when you block if you're a CI build. Or you could get both if you're going like hybrid or whatever. Gain an Endurance Frenzy or Power Charge when you block. Since I'm not taking the Frenzy Charge node, I need a way to generate Frenzy Charges. And then chance to shock attackers for 4 seconds when you block. This is a 20% shock baseline. Also, one thing worth noting, if you're going for the dual wand option, I would highly recommend crafting cast a socketed spell when you use a spell on them, and then you could use stuff like Bane in there to automate your curses. You could go for stuff to automate like Cold Snap for Frenzy Charge generation, and Chilled Ground scales very well with Temp Chains. All of that stuff worth kind of floating around. That's why I don't recommend Swift Killer as much. There are lots of ways to get Frenzy Charges elsewhere. And the tree basically looks like that. Now, you'll notice that I've gone for a shield tree, a dual wield tree, but no staff nodes. Why is that? So these nodes are very powerful. They give you a lot of damage. They give you a lot of spell block. Sorry, these give a lot of attack block. These nodes here give a lot of spell block. Unfortunately, the placement's just kind of awkward because on all of these trees, I kind of skip the middle of Witch. This cluster here is only 1 point travel compared to like 2 point travel for that. And it gives you 30% increased cooldown recovery for movement skills. Really nice for Flame Dash. If you're going dual wield wands, you're going to be using a lot of Flame Dash. This is really solid. It also gives you a whole bunch of cast speed and some base movement speed. If you're going ED Contagion, it's a 2 combo skill. You want loads of cast speed. Definitely take this cluster, use 2 wands, get hella proj speed. Minion nodes, because it makes us do damage. Kind of sucks I still need to explain this now, but yeah, this is good. This is a bunch of damage, gives a current sort of increased life regen, increased life regen. Life regen scales very well with Trickster, increased life regen scaling. You could go acro, phase acro, but I'm trying to save points. For curses you run this build, it would be Despair and Temp Chains, applied through Bane most likely, and again, for auras, Malevolence, Zealotry, Discipline, Dread Banner. With these 4 nodes here and a Devouring Diadem, you can reserve all of those in the helmet. Have 3% left over. That 3% you have left over you could use for a low-level Clarity if you had any good Watcher's Eye Clarity mods, or if you also just want some extra MTX, level 1 Clarity with an aura applied to it, seems pretty good to me. So why not staffs? Because I kind of skipped over that. So not only is the placement kind of bad, a lot of the staff nodes are much more focused into crit-based stuff. Enigmatic Defense gives you Unholy Might when you block. Gives a bunch of spell block and attack block, which is very good. But the Unholy Might's mostly for physical stuff. If you're doing staff-based Bane, this node is very good. This gives you loads of AoE scaling and a bunch of cast speed. But generally, I think they're a bit too out of the way. These nodes are very good. But basically, if you want the staff nodes, you kind of want all the staff nodes, and I just couldn't really justify the points. To see what a CI tree would look like, a CI tree would look roughly something kind of like this. If you want to do this as a cultist instead of Trickster, change the starting points round. And also if you did this as Witch instead of Shadow, you gain a bunch of skill points. You're like, this level 100 tree, what the hell do I do? Cut random fluff points that are floating. Cut Harrier, we're now down to level 95 tree. You could cut this as a random floating node. You could drop Flask nodes. You could drop Jewels. And yeah, you can kind of mix and match around with it. Now, if you want to do a pure Bane tree, you could do pure Bane Trickster or pure Bane Occultist. This is just a life, again, EB Mom tree to start. If you want to go CI, you can. The one thing which is kind of nice about doing this as an Occultist instead of a Trickster is you get that inbuilt hexproof. If you do Bane as a Trickster, you definitely want hexproof. So you're going to need to either re-roll over map mods, or you could use Cosprey's Will. Cosprey's Will gives you +1 curse and hexproof, and has a good amount of evasion on it, so it would be a good ES chest for a Trickster. But I think Occultist just pulls ahead. And again, your curses would be Bane linked to Despair, Temp Chains Enfeeble in a +3 setup. If you have a +4 setup, I would probably recommend either Poachers or Warlord's Mark. Poachers gives you frenzy charges, and it also gives you increased flask charge generation. Warlords would give you endurance charges. Poachers would be a lot better, obviously. So yeah, that's kind of my recommended setups. I'm going to play this as my League starter most likely. I haven't decided which skill yet. I'll try out all of the skills, and I'm going to do it as a Trickster, probably with a shield or dual wield wands. Really depends how I feel about Soulrend, how I feel about Bane. Now, as for what links am I using, what all the gear, what's all this, what's all of that, we need to try out all the new supports. We need to see what skills we lean more into. Should be pretty easy to work out yourself, though. Keep an eye on PB Ninja, keep an eye on the streams, and you can have the update. Again, this is a very base kind of like, this is roughly kind of what you want to do. People asking, am I going to make a bunch of Ignite builds? Because Ignite's a lot better. Ignite is a lot better, but I would recommend going Chaos DoT rather than Ignite DoT to League start on, because Ignite DoT has to roll over map bots. Chaos doesn't have to re-roll over anything. But yes, I'm Tarke. Have a good day. Lots more videos to come. Bye-bye.